Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Classics Spikor. This one is pretty exciting, because Spikor has not received a new figure since the vintage days. He never appeared in the 2000X toy or Staction line, so this is the first update that we've seen. Is it a good one? Let's find out. Spikor comes in the standard Masters of the Universe Classics blister card packaging. The back of that card features a look at other figures in the toy line, as well as a brand new bio for Spikor. Spikor is a very unique character, as his head and body feature several spikes scattered about. I've always felt he has a bit of a sea urchin look, especially with his purple color scheme. His arms and legs are a lighter shade of purple, which do have some nice shading on them. His torso, spiked armor, and head are a much deeper purple, with some teal accents around his neck and going down the center of his chest. His head sculpt is pretty great. He has a smashed pig-like nose and large teeth sticking out of his mouth. The spikes on his head are actually a little shorter in comparison to his vintage figure, which you'll notice more later on in this video. I believe that his head sculpt is more based off his appearances in other media, such as the Filmation cartoon and mini-comics, rather than the original action figure. While I love this head sculpt, I do need to point out that the eyes on my particular figure are painted a little crooked. It's not terribly noticeable from some angles, but looking at him head on, you can see that they're not even. Hopefully this is not a common occurrence. Alright my friends, let's take a closer look at Spikor. Now one of the things that I really kind of noticed on this guy is his spikes are actually kind of hard. The vintage figure kind of had like gummier, softer spikes, and they were real flexible and you can kind of bend them around. And while these spikes, they are still kind of rounded off, they're not like sharp and spiky or anything, they're all made of a hard plastic, so they're not soft and gummy. So when you hold him, he actually does kind of prick you a little bit. So that's definitely interesting. I was expecting him to be just as soft as the original. The articulation on the guy works just like we've seen with pretty much all of the other Masters of the Universe Classics figures. So you got your left and right head movement, you got the ball jointed shoulders, the rotations at the biceps there, you got your single joint in the elbow, swivel at the wrist, you got the torso cut. The spike piece here is an armor piece, so it just sits over the main buck, so you can see that you can still move him kind of up and down a little bit at the torso there, and then he does swivel. The leg articulation is really nice. He's got the softer, more flexible loincloth piece, so you can get him in sitting poses if you want to put him in a Wind Raider or on a Beast, anything like that. He's got the new ankle joints, and they're nice and tight, so they got a little bit of a rock going left and right. They move forward and backward, but they're real tight. They're locked in very good, so he stands up very well. There's no issues with that. Now, as I said, the spike piece here is actually an armor piece on this Spikor. So it just pops off. You got the little latches on the back there on either side. We've seen armor just like this before. So if you want to pop it off, you can just pull his head off, just like all the other figures. You can slide the armor off over his torso, and now you've got yourself a Spikor without the spiked armor. Now personally, I always kind of felt like this was just part of his body, not necessarily armor, especially since his head is like this. But I guess it could work either way, where this actually is his armor. So either way, it's a good way to pull this off without actually having to re-sculpt a whole new torso or anything like that. It just fits right over the main buck, and it works really well and still holds your articulation for him. So that's that. Now, one of the cool features that Spikor has here is interchangeable hands. You might remember that the vintage figure, his left hand had this little trident weapon on it. And it kind of had the extending feature where it could be pulled all the way in, you can pull it out and it extends and gets longer. This particular Spikor, you can see he has a left hand. Now, of course, Spikor in the Filmation cartoon series, stuff like that, he did actually have a hand over here. So if you want to make him look more like the vintage action figure with the Trident, well, he comes with all the pieces to do that. You can actually pop the hand off, and you can see that the little knob is attached to the bottom of the hand, and it just plugs into his wrist slot. Now this works just like any of your other figures with interchangeable parts on their hands. So Trapjaw, Roboto, Horde Prime, Hurricane Hordak, it's the exact same piece, which, yes, that does mean you can attach all those other attachments to Spikor's wrist. But let's go and take a look at his personal attachment. First thing you've got is the little red piece, and it just clips around on his wrist, because you can see on the vintage figure he's got that little red bracer piece. So that's exactly what this is. You can clip the little red bracer piece on, and it has the exact same size hole on the other end. So now you can take the Trident piece, and you can pop that in there. So now you've got him with his Trident on his hand. Now, of course, this one doesn't extend like on the vintage figure, but he comes with an additional piece, which you can just pop on in its place, so you've got the fully extended Trident. So that is really cool how that works, and it's a great way to be able to get him in those different poses without actually having that extending feature. If he actually had that feature, he would have a stiff arm, just like the vintage figure, but this allows us with a full range of motion in his arm still, and you can display him however you want to. Now, those, like I said, those are the same size pegs. So if you don't want to use the red bracer for any reason, you can plug those straight into his wrist, and it still works just the same. So, pretty cool little extra feature there for Spikor. The Trident pieces are painted with a shiny silver, and they're pretty rigid for the most part. The longer Trident is a bit softer in the extended piece, but you really shouldn't have to worry about it warping over time, because it doesn't feel like it's that soft. As an additional accessory, Spikor includes his classic orange spiked mace. This one is made of a softer plastic than the Trident pieces, so it does have a bit of a gumminess to it. It does feature a pretty nice paint job, with the spikes all done in a metallic orange paint. Alright guys, it's comparison time! Here's Spikor standing alongside the vintage figure, the only other Spikor ever made. You can see the similarities, but also the differences in style, especially in that head sculpt. Spikor is another one of those vintage figures that I always loved as a kid. He's incredibly unique looking and certainly stands out among most of the other figures on your shelf. Plus, I was always a fan of his color scheme, but seeing as how dark purple is one of my favorite colors, I may be biased there. The wonky eyes are my only complaint about this figure, and that may just be a paint mishap on my personal figure. Everything else is great, and I'm very happy to add this guy to my collection. Until next time.